I pulled into our driveway, feeling a wave of relief wash over me after being away on business for 2 grueling weeks. I couldn't wait to surprise Lisa with the news of my promotion. The house looked exactly as I'd left it. Crisp white siding, bushes trimmed to perfection. A picture-perfect home sweet home. Lugging my suitcase from the trunk, I approached the front door, trying to be as quiet as possible. The key slid smoothly into the lock, and I stepped inside. The familiar scent of lavender hit me immediately. Lisa's favorite. "Honey, I'm back early," I called out, setting my bags down. No response. Strange. Her car was parked outside. I started up the stairs, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. As I neared our bedroom, I could make out muffled voices and laughter. My brow furrowed. Who could she be talking to upstairs? I reached for the doorknob but hesitated when I caught part of their conversation. "Oh, Jake, you're terrible," Lisa's voice said, breathless with laughter. "What if Daniel finds out?" A chill ran through me. Jake? My own brother? "As if that idiot would ever catch on," Jake replied, his voice dripping with contempt. "He's too wrapped up in that promotion to notice what's happening right under his nose." I stood there paralyzed as their conversation continued. "You're right," Lisa agreed. "It's almost too easy. The way he looks at me with those trusting eyes, it's pathetic." "Well, you've always been a convincing actress, sis," Jake chuckled. "Remember how you cried when he proposed? That was worthy of an award." Their laughter hit me like a punch to the gut. My mind was reeling, trying to process the betrayal unfolding before me. How long had this been going on? How could they do this to me? I wanted to burst in, to confront them, to demand answers. But something held me back. A cold, hard resolve started to form inside me. No, I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. In a daze, I retreated down the stairs. I grabbed my suitcase and a few personal items. My hand hovered over a framed photo of Lisa, Jake, and me from last year's Christmas party. A wave of disgust washed over me, and I left it behind. As I drove away, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, I swore to myself they thought I was a fool. Fine. I'd show them just how wrong they were. They'd regret the day they underestimated Daniel Harris. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town, my mind racing with plans. First things first, I needed a new identity. Daniel Harris was dead to me now. I spent the night hunched over my laptop, moving money, closing accounts, wiping out my digital footprint. By the time dawn broke, I had the framework of a new life ready. As the first light of day filtered through the window, I allowed myself a small smile. Lisa and Jake thought they had me fooled, but soon enough, their laughter would turn to ashes in their mouths. I'd make sure of it. 7 years. It's amazing how much can change in that time. I gazed out at the San Francisco skyline from my penthouse office, a glass of 30-year-old scotch in hand. Below, the city buzzed with life, completely unaware of the plans forming in my mind. A knock at the door pulled me out of my thoughts. "Come in," I said, not turning away from the view. My assistant, Emma, entered quietly. "Mr. West, the reports you asked for are ready." I turned to acknowledge her. "Thank you, Emma. Just leave them on my desk." As she set the folders down, her eyes flicked to the bottle of scotch. "Will there be anything else, sir?" "No, that's all," I replied, dismissing her with a casual wave. Once I was alone, I eased into the leather chair behind my polished mahogany desk and opened the first folder. A smirk tugged at my lips as I skimmed through the pages. Lisa and Jake's lives had spiraled downward since I vanished. Jake's gambling habit had worsened, plunging him into debt, forcing him to borrow from increasingly dangerous sources just to keep his head above water. As for Lisa, she was struggling to maintain her lavish lifestyle on a single income. The strain on their relationship was evident, judging by the private investigator's photos. I leaned back, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Phase 1 of my plan was unfolding perfectly, but now it was time for the final blow. I picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. "David, it's Mark. I need you to set something in motion for me." "David M." My unyielding corporate attorney listened intently as I outlined my next move. "Consider it done," he replied smoothly. "Anything else?" I hesitated, then made up my mind. "Yes, actually. I need you to arrange for a DNA test. Discreetly, of course." "May I ask what for?" he inquired. "Let's just say I'm clearing up some doubts," I said evasively. "I'll send you the details later." After hanging up, I pulled up an old photo on my computer. Maddie's bright, gap-toothed smile stared back at me, full of innocent joy. My daughter, or at least that's what I had believed. The possibility that she wasn't mine had been a bitter pill to swallow, but I needed to be sure before moving forward with my plans. Weeks later, the results arrived in an unmarked envelope. I tore it open, scanning the document with growing anger. Not mine. She had never been mine. I crumpled the paper in my fist, a cold fury washing over me. Lisa's betrayal ran even deeper than I had imagined. She hadn't just stolen my happiness. She'd taken my paternity too. Enough was enough. It was time to turn up the heat. Over the next few months, I set my plan into motion. Anonymous tips to Lisa's workplace about her indiscretions led to her sudden dismissal. Meanwhile, I quietly acquired Jake's debts, becoming his primary creditor without him ever knowing. I watched from the shadows as their lives unraveled, piece by carefully orchestrated piece. Lisa grew bitter, lashing out at Jake for his failures. Jake, sinking further into his addiction, gambled away whatever little he had left. It was almost too easy. They had grown complacent in my absence, never suspecting the storm that was about to hit them. As I prepared for the final stage of my revenge, I couldn't help but savor the irony. They had seen me as a fool, easily duped and discarded. But I had risen from the ashes of their betrayal, stronger and more formidable than ever before. Mark West, tech magnate and relentless strategist, was worlds apart from the naive Daniel Harris they once knew. And soon, very soon, they would realize just how much I had changed. For now, I'd let them cling to their delusions. I mused, raising my glass in a mocking toast to the San Francisco night. The day of reckoning was drawing near. Scene 3. The First Strike. The familiar cacophony of the casino floor enveloped me as I moved through the crowd. Flashing lights blinked, slot machines chimed, and the constant murmur of voices created a dizzying symphony of greed and desperation. I adjusted my tailored suit, a far cry from the simple clothes I once wore. It's incredible how a well-fitted jacket and a confident demeanor can make you almost invisible. I spotted him at the high-stakes poker table, sweat beading on his forehead as he studied his cards. My dear brother Jake, looking even worse than the last time I'd seen him. I took a seat at the bar, ordered a whiskey, and settled in to watch the show unfold. It didn't take long. "All in," Jake declared, his voice laced with desperation. The other players exchanged glances, clearly sensing his weakness. I sipped my drink, hiding a smirk behind the glass. Oh, Jake, still as predictable as ever. The game went exactly as I expected. Jake's bluff was called, and I watched as the color drained from his face. He had lost everything. As he stumbled away from the table, I decided it was time to make my move. "Tough night?" I asked, falling into step beside him. Jake glanced over at me, his eyes glazed. "You have no idea, man." "Oh, I think I might," I replied smoothly. "In fact, I might just have a way out of your predicament." That got his attention. "What do you mean?" I steered him toward a quiet corner of the casino. "I've noticed your unfortunate streak of bad luck. As it happens, I specialize in helping people like you, those who've landed themselves in financial trouble." Jake's expression turned cautious. "Who are you?" "Mark West," I introduced myself, extending a hand. "And I believe I'm the solution to your problem." Jake Harris. His eyes widened at the sound of his own name. "How do you know?" "I make it a point to be well informed, Mr. Harris, including about the substantial debts you've accumulated. Debts that, as of an hour ago, now belong to me." Jake's face went pale, and he took a step back. "What do you want?" I smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "It's quite simple. I'm willing to erase all your debts, but in return, I want your share of Harris Family Enterprise. But that's the family business, Jake stammered. It can't just… Oh, it can, and it will, I cut him off sharply. Unless you'd prefer I call in those debts right now? I'm sure your lovely wife Lisa would be thrilled to learn just how deep a hole you've dug yourself into. Jake's shoulders slumped in defeat. I don't really have a choice, do I? There's always a choice, Jake, I said, my voice dripping with false sympathy. This one just happens to be particularly straightforward. Sign over your shares, and all your problems disappear. Well, at least the financial ones. As Jake scrawled his signature on the papers I had ready, I allowed myself a moment of triumph. Phase 1 was complete. Across town, Lisa was facing her own judgment day, one I had carefully orchestrated. "You can't do this!" she yelled, confronting her now former boss. "I've given years of my life to this company." "I'm sorry, Lisa, but we can't ignore the facts," the man responded wearily. "The board has decided that your misconduct has brought too much negative attention to the firm. We have no choice but to terminate your employment, effective immediately." I watched the scene unfold through the hidden camera I had planted in the office. Lisa's face twisted with fury and disbelief as she was escorted out, clutching a box of her belongings. Back in my penthouse, I poured myself a celebratory drink. The pieces were falling into place perfectly. Lisa jobless and desperate, Jake under my thumb and terrified of my next move. But the best part was yet to come. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I clicked the link, a slow grin spreading across my face as I read the headline. There, looking miserable in her mugshot, was Maddie, my so-called daughter, now a common criminal. The irony was almost too perfect. I set my phone down, gazing out at the sparkling city lights. The carefully crafted world Lisa and Jake had built was crumbling around them. Soon, very soon, they'd have no choice but to turn to the last person they ever expected to see again. For now, I let them stew in their misery. The real show was just beginning. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, looking out over the city skyline. The sun was setting, casting the sky in hues of orange and pink. It was almost beautiful enough to distract me from the storm raging inside. Almost. My phone buzzed. A message from my security team. "She's here." I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what was about to happen. This was the moment I had been preparing for over the past 7 years. I wasn't about to let old feelings cloud my judgment now. The elevator chimed, and I heard the distinct click of heels on the marble floor. I didn't turn around. "Daniel?" Her voice was hesitant, unsure. "Hello, Lisa," I replied coolly, finally facing her. "It's been a long time." She gasped, taking in my appearance. I knew what she saw: success, power, wealth, everything she had thrown away. "My God, Daniel," she whispered. "You look… different." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you expect me to spend all these years wallowing in self-pity?" She winced at my tone. "No, she faltered, seemingly recalling why she was here. "Daniel, I need your help. It's Maddie. She's in serious trouble." I gestured to the leather couch. "Sit down. Tell me what happened." As Lisa sank onto the couch, I noticed the worry lines etched deep into her face, the slight tremor in her hands. She looked desperate, just as I had planned. "Maddie's been arrested," she blurted out. "Some stupid robbery gone wrong. I have no idea what she was thinking. And Jake, he's completely useless. We can't afford bail, let alone a decent lawyer. Please, Daniel, I know I don't deserve to ask, but she's your daughter too." I let the silence hang in the air, watching her squirm. Finally, I broke it. "Is she?" Lisa blinked, clearly taken aback. "What? Is she my daughter, Lisa?" I reached into my desk drawer, pulling out a manila envelope. "Because these DNA results say otherwise." The color drained from her face. How did you… I tossed the envelope at her feet. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That I'd keep playing the fool while you and Jake laughed behind my back?" "Daniel, I can explain." "Save it," I cut her off. "I heard enough that night, remember?" "Oh, you're terrible. What if Daniel found out? I mimicked her voice, dripping with mockery. Like that idiot would ever catch on. Lisa's eyes widened in horror. You were there? You heard everything? I confirmed every lie, every betrayal. Did you enjoy it, Lisa? Making a fool of me all those years? She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. It wasn't like that, Daniel. I loved you. I swear I did. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Loved me so much you slept with my brother behind my back, passed off his child as mine. I'm sorry, she whispered. God, Daniel. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, but please, Maddie needs help. Whatever you think of me, she's innocent in all this. I walked over to the bar, pouring myself a drink. I needed it for what I was about to say next. Maddie is not my responsibility, Lisa. And neither are you. What do you mean? I turned back to her, my eyes cold. I mean, I don't owe you anything. Not a dime, not a second of my time. The Daniel you knew, the one you could manipulate and deceive, is gone. I burned him away the night I left, along with every shred of feeling I had for you. Lisa stood up, desperation etched in every line of her body. Please, Daniel. I'm begging you. If not for me, then for Maddie. She doesn't deserve to suffer because of my mistakes. And I didn't deserve to be betrayed by the two people I trusted the most, I retorted. Life's not fair, is it? She took a step toward me, reaching out. I recoiled. Don't touch me. What happened to you? She whispered. The Daniel I knew would never be this heartless. I smiled, but it was all teeth and no warmth. He grew up, learned the hard way that kindness is just a weakness for people like you to exploit. Now, if that's all, I believe we're finished here. Lisa's face crumpled. So that's it? 7 years of marriage, and you can just turn it off like that? You made it surprisingly easy, I replied. Now, unless you want me to call security, I suggest you leave. And Lisa, don't come back. I watched without emotion as she stumbled to the elevator, her body racked with sobs. As the doors closed on her tear-streaked face, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just a cold, unwavering resolve to see this through to the end. I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. David, it's done. She took the bait. Time to move on to phase 2. I was in the middle of a conference call when my head of security, Jackson, buzzed my intercom. Sir, we have a situation. Jake Harris is here, demanding to see you. He seems agitated. I smiled. Right on time. Let him stew in the lobby for 10 minutes, then send him up. Understood, sir. I quickly wrapped up the call and then buzzed my assistant. Emma, clear my schedule for the next hour and have security on standby. Exactly 10 minutes later, the elevator chimed. I leaned back in my chair, affecting an air of casual indifference as Jake burst into my office. You son of a... he snarled, his face flushed with anger. What did you say to Lisa? I raised an eyebrow. Hello to you too, brother. It's been a while. Jake stormed over to my desk. Cut the crap, Daniel. What the hell are you up to? Up to? I echoed, feigning innocence. I'm not the one who was playing games, Jake. That was you and Lisa, remember? He slammed his hands down on my desk. Listen here, you smug bastard. I don't know how you weaseled your way back into our lives, but it stops now. Stay away from Lisa, or I'll... Or you'll what? I interrupted, standing to meet his glare. Hit me? Go ahead. My security team would love an excuse to toss you out on your ass. Jake's eyes flicked to the door, where 2 burly security guards had appeared. He took a step back, some of the fight draining out of him. What do you want, Daniel? He asked, his voice losing some of its edge. Money? Is that it? Because I'm telling you now, I don't have any. I chuckled. Oh, I'm well aware of your financial situation, Jake. The gambling debts, the loans from some very questionable sources, must be quite the burden. His eyes narrowed. How do you... I cut him off. I make it my business to know things. Just like I know about your affair with Lisa. How long did it go on, Jake? Months? Years? Before or after Maddie was born? Jake turned pale. Daniel, I held up a hand. Spare me your excuses. I'm not interested in your pathetic attempts at justification. What I am interested in is making sure you understand just how badly you've screwed up. I walked around the desk, circling him like a predator. You see, brother, while you've been busy squandering your life savings at the blackjack table, I've been making investments. In you, as a matter of fact. What are you talking about? Jake asked, confusion evident in his voice. I smiled coldly. Those debts you owe? They're mine now. Every single cent. Which means effectively, I own you. The realization dawned on Jake's face, quickly giving way to anger. You can't do this. I already have, I replied calmly. But don't worry, I'm willing to make a deal. Sign over your shares in the family business, and I'll consider your debt settled. Jake let out a bitter laugh. The family business? That went under years ago after you disappeared. Did it? I asked, feigning innocence. Maybe you should check the stock prices. I hear Harris Tech is doing quite well these days. His eyes widened. Harris Tech? But that's… How did you… Details, I said with a dismissive wave. The point is, Jake, you have a choice to make. Sign over your shares, or I start calling in your debts. All of them. I wonder how Lisa will react when she finds out just how deep a hole you've dug. Jake's shoulders slumped in defeat. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I've had 7 years to plan this, I replied. Now, are you going to sign, or should I call my lawyer? With trembling hands, Jake signed the documents I placed in front of him. As he did, I felt a surge of triumph, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. We're done here, I said, gesturing to the security guards. Show Mr. Harris out. As they led him away, Jake turned back. Was it worth it, Daniel? Destroying your family for revenge? I met his gaze steadily. You and Lisa destroyed this family long before I ever lifted a finger. I'm just making sure you pay the price for it. The elevator doors closed on Jake's defeated face, and I allowed myself a small smile. 2 down, 1 to go. I was reviewing contracts in my home office when Emma buzzed me. Sir, Lisa Harris is here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Send her up. Moments later, Lisa burst into my office. She looked different, desperate, yes, but there was something else, a glint in her eye that I recognized all too well. Daniel, she breathed, her voice low and seductive. We need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, eyeing her cautiously. I believe we said everything we needed to say last time, Lisa. She shook her head, stepping closer. No, we didn't. I've been thinking, Daniel, about us, about the past. I made a mistake, a terrible, unforgivable mistake. Several, actually, I corrected coldly. She flinched but continued. I know, and I'm so sorry, so sorry. She perched on the edge of my desk, her skirt inching up. But it doesn't have to be like this. We could start over. Give us another chance. I raised an eyebrow. Us? There is no us, Lisa. There hasn't been for 7 years. She leaned in, her perfume filling the air. It was different from what she used to wear. Cheaper. There could be, she whispered. I know you still feel something for me, Daniel. How could you not, after everything we shared? I stood abruptly, putting space between us. The only thing I feel for you is contempt. Lisa's seductive facade crumbled, revealing the desperation underneath. Please, Daniel, I'll do anything, anything you want. Just help me, help Maddie. I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. Anything I want? Tell me, Lisa, is that what you told Jake? Is that how you justified betraying me? She recoiled as if struck. It wasn't like that. No? I challenged. Then enlighten me. What was it like, sneaking around with my brother for years? Passing off his child as mine? Laughing at how naive and trusting I was? Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Daniel. You're not perfect either. The difference, I said icily, is that my mistakes didn't destroy a family. She stood up, anger flaring as the seductive facade dropped. And what do you call this? What you're doing now? You're tearing us apart. I smiled, all teeth and no warmth. No, Lisa. I'm just finishing what you and Jake started. Did you really think you could make a fool of me and walk away unscathed? Realization washed over her face. It was you, she whispered. My job, Jake's debts. It was all you. I clapped slowly, mockingly. Bravo. You finally put the pieces together. Yes, it was me. Every setback, every misfortune. I orchestrated all of it. Lisa stumbled back, horror etched in her features. Why? Why go to all this trouble? Because you took everything from me, I snarled, letting my anger slip through. My trust, my love, my family. You made me believe in a life that was built on lies. So I decided to return the favor. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Daniel, please. We can fix this. We can start over, be a family again. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. A family? We were never a family, Lisa. Just a convenient lie you told yourself to justify your betrayal. What about Maddie? She pleaded. She needs you, Daniel. She's still your daughter, no matter what the DNA says. I walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. Maddie stopped being my responsibility the moment I found out the truth. She's your problem now, Lisa. Yours and Jake's. You're a monster, Lisa whispered. I turned back to her, my gaze cold. No, I'm just a man who learned the hard way that love is a weakness. You taught me that lesson, Lisa. You should be proud. She stumbled toward the door, her composure in shreds. This isn't over, Daniel. You can't just erase 7 years of marriage, of family. Watch me, I replied calmly. Goodbye, Lisa. Don't come back. As the elevator doors closed on her tear-streaked face, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was done. The last vestige of my old life finally cut away. I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. David, it's time. Make sure Maddie gets bailed out. Anonymously, of course. Understood, David replied. Are you sure about this, Daniel? What changed your mind? Why help Lisa? I smiled. Yes, I want them to raise that troubled kid and face the consequences. It'll be interesting to watch them struggle to make ends meet while dealing with her. As I hung up, I gazed out at the city once more. 7 years of planning, of rebuilding myself from nothing, had all led to this moment. Lisa and Jake thought they'd broken me, destroyed me. Instead, they'd forged me into something stronger, tougher. Let them struggle, I thought. Let them feel just a fraction of the pain they caused me. It was time they learned the true cost of betrayal. As for me, I had an empire to run and a future to build, one that was free from the shadows of the past. I was sitting in my office, going over the latest quarterly reports, when my intercom buzzed. Mr. West, David M. is here to see you, my assistant announced. Send him in, I replied, setting aside the papers. David entered, his usual composed demeanor slightly unsettled. He held a thick manila envelope in his hands. Daniel, he greeted me, taking a seat across from my desk. We have a situation. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? He slid the envelope across to me. Lisa filed for divorce. She's demanding half of your assets in alimony. I couldn't help but chuckle as I opened the envelope and skimmed its contents. Well, it seems our dear Lisa has found some fight left in her after all. David leaned forward, his expression serious. This is no laughing matter, Daniel. She's claiming you abandoned her and Maddie, leaving them in financial ruin. If the court buys her story. They won't, I interrupted, my amusement fading. You and I both know that, David. We've been preparing for this scenario for years. He nodded, some of the tension easing from his posture. True, but we shouldn't underestimate her. Desperate people can be unpredictable. I stood, walking over to the window that overlooked the city. Lisa's desperation is exactly what we're counting on. She's made her move. Now it's time for our counterstrike. David's reflection in the glass showed a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. What did you have in mind? I turned back to him. First, I want every piece of evidence we've gathered over the years compiled and ready for court. The recordings of Lisa and Jake, the financial records showing how she funneled money to support his gambling habit, The DNA results proving Maddie isn't mine. Everything. David was already jotting down notes. Consider it done. What else? We're going to counter-sue, I said, my voice firm. Infidelity and fraud. Since we're in a fault-based divorce state, it should be more than enough to not only dismiss her claims, but also potentially make her liable for my legal fees. Brutal, David commented, though I could hear the approval in his tone. She won't know what hit her. I smiled coldly. That's the plan. I want you to bury her, David. Use every legal tactic available. When we're finished, I want Lisa to regret ever thinking she could take me on in court. David stood, gathering his papers. I'll get right on it. We'll need to move quickly to countersue. As he reached the door, I called out, David! He turned back. Yes? No mercy, I said, my voice low. Not an ounce of it. Understood. David's eyes gleamed with a ruthlessness that matched my own. We'll crush her, Daniel. I promise you that. As the door closed behind him, I turned back to the window, a deep sense of satisfaction settling over me. Lisa thought she could use the law against me. She was about to find out just how outmatched she really was. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. David and his team worked tirelessly, building an airtight case against Lisa. I threw myself into my work, using the steady rhythm of business deals and corporate maneuvers to keep my focus sharp. Finally, the day arrived. I stood in my walk-in closet, adjusting my tie as I prepared for our first court appearance. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Come in, I called out. Emma, my assistant, entered. The car's ready, Mr. West. Mr. M called to say he'll meet us at the courthouse. I nodded, giving myself one last glance in the mirror. The man staring back at me bore little resemblance to the naive fool Lisa had betrayed all those years ago. Good. Let's go, I said, striding past Emma. As we drove through the city, my mind wandered back to the night I walked away. The night when the pain and betrayal became too much to bear. For a fleeting moment, I almost felt a pang of regret, a trace of sadness, but I quickly pushed it aside. There was no room for weakness, not when I was this close to achieving the final victory. The courthouse loomed ahead, a grand stone structure that would serve as the stage for the last act of my carefully orchestrated revenge. As I ascended the steps, flanked by Emma and my security team, I noticed a familiar figure waiting by the entrance. Lisa. Our eyes met, and for a brief second, I caught a glimpse of the woman I had once loved. But then her gaze hardened, reminding me exactly why we were here, what she had done. Daniel. She greeted me as I approached, her voice carefully neutral. Lisa, I replied coolly. I'd say it's good to see you, but we both know that would be a lie. She flinched slightly, but quickly composed herself. It doesn't have to be like this. We could still settle out of court. I laughed, the sound harsh and devoid of humor. Now you want to negotiate? I'm afraid that ship sailed a long time ago, Lisa. You made your decision when you chose to play hardball. Now you'll have to live with the consequences. Before she could respond, David appeared at my side. Daniel, we're ready. The judge is waiting. I nodded, then turned back to Lisa. See you inside. I hope you're prepared for what's coming. As we walked away, I heard her whisper, just loud enough for me to catch. What happened to you, Daniel? I didn't bother to answer. She'd find out soon enough. The courtroom felt like a battlefield, and I was the general surveying the terrain. Lisa and her lawyers sat on one side, looking tense and slightly overwhelmed. David and I were on the other, calm and composed. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, called the court to order. We're here today for the divorce proceedings of Lisa Harris versus Daniel West, formerly known as Daniel Harris. Mrs. Harris, your lawyer may present your case. Lisa's lawyer, a nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting suit, stood up. Your Honor, my client seeks a fair division of assets and alimony payments from Mr. West. She asserts that Mr. West abandoned her and their daughter, Maddie, 7 years ago, leaving them in financial ruin while he built a new life and amassed considerable wealth. I listened quietly as the lawyer continued, weaving a tale of hardship and struggle that barely resembled the truth. Lisa, for her part, played the role of the wronged wife to perfection, her eyes shining with unshed tears as she recounted the supposed hardships she had endured. Mr. West disappeared without a word, Lisa testified, her voice trembling. One day he was there, and the next, gone. No explanation, no support, nothing. Maddie and I were left to fend for ourselves while he built an empire, I interjected coolly when she hesitated. The judge's gavel came down sharply. Mr. West, you will refrain from interrupting the witness. I nodded, not even pretending to be contrite. My apologies, Your Honor. Lisa's lawyer wrapped up their case, painting me as a cold-hearted man who had abandoned his family to chase wealth and success. It took all my self-control not to laugh at the sheer irony of it all. Finally, it was our turn. David stood, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Your Honor, we not only refute Mrs. Harris's claims, but are prepared to present evidence that will show her lawsuit to be nothing more than a desperate attempt at extortion. The judge leaned forward, intrigued. Proceed, Mr. Martin. What followed was a masterclass in legal evisceration. David methodically dismantled every aspect of Lisa's case, his words as precise and devastating as surgical strikes. First, Your Honor, we submit into evidence recordings that prove Mrs. Harris was engaged in a long-term affair with Mr. West's brother, Jake Harris. Lisa's gasp was audible as David played selected clips from the recording, her face draining of color as her own voice filled the courtroom, laughing about how she and Jake had deceived me for years. Furthermore, David continued, unrelenting, we have financial records showing that Mrs. Harris regularly diverted money from the family accounts to support Mr. Jake Harris's gambling addiction. He presented document after document, each one driving another nail into the coffin of Lisa's case. I watched her, seeing the growing realization in her eyes that she had severely underestimated what she was up against. But the final blow was yet to come. Finally, Your Honor, David said, his voice heavy with gravitas. We submit DNA evidence proving that Maddie Harris, the child Mrs. Harris claims Mr. West abandoned, is not in fact his biological daughter. The courtroom erupted into shocked murmurs. The judge's gavel came down hard, demanding order. Lisa looked as if she might collapse. Your Honor, David concluded. In light of this evidence, we move not only to dismiss Mrs. Harris's claims, but to countersue for divorce on the grounds of infidelity and fraud. Given that we are in a fault-based divorce state, the evidence clearly shows that Mrs. Harris is the party at fault. The judge, visibly shaken by the revelations, turned to Lisa's lawyer. Counselor, do you have any response to these allegations? The man fumbled, clearly out of his depth. Your Honor, we had no knowledge of that. That is to say, what my esteemed colleague is struggling to articulate, David interrupted smoothly, is that they have no defense against the truth. Mr. West didn't abandon his family, Your Honor. He fled a sham of a marriage after discovering his wife's infidelity and fraud. I finally spoke up, my voice cold and clear in the stunned silence of the courtroom. I left because I overheard my wife and brother laughing about how they had deceived me for years. I took nothing but what was rightfully mine, and started over. Everything I've built since then, I've done on my own. Lisa has no claim to it. The judge's eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of understanding there. She turned to Lisa, who sat shell-shocked in her seat. Mrs. Harris, do you have anything to say in your defense? Lisa stood on unsteady legs, her carefully crafted facade crumbling. I didn't mean for... Daniel, please. You have to understand, I understand perfectly. I cut her off, my voice devoid of emotion. I understand that you betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now you're trying to profit from it. Well, not anymore. The judge called for a recess to review the new evidence. As we filed out of the courtroom, I caught Lisa's eye. The look of utter defeat on her face was all the vindication I needed. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as we all took our seats, waiting for the judge to return. Lisa looked like a woman on the verge of collapse, her earlier confidence replaced by a deep, bone-weary defeat. Her lawyer kept casting nervous glances our way, clearly aware of just how badly outmatched they were. David, on the other hand, remained the picture of calm assurance. He leaned over to me, speaking in a low voice. "It's in the bag, Daniel. There's no way the judge can rule in her favor after what we've presented." I nodded, allowing myself a small, satisfied smile. Good. It's time Lisa learned that actions have consequences. The bailiff's voice rang out. "All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Evelyn Harley presiding." We stood as the judge entered, her face impassive as she took her seat. "Be seated," she instructed, her gaze sweeping across the courtroom. "After reviewing the evidence presented," Judge Harley began, her voice stern and unwavering, "I'm prepared to render my verdict. Mrs. Harris, please stand." Lisa rose unsteadily, her face a mask of dread. "Mrs. Harris, your petition for divorce, alimony, and division of assets is denied," the judge declared firmly. "Furthermore, I'm granting Mr. West's countersuit for divorce on the grounds of infidelity and fraud." A small, choked sound escaped Lisa's throat. Her lawyer placed a steadying hand on her arm, but it did little to ease the visible despair in her eyes. The judge continued, her tone leaving no room for dispute. "Given the overwhelming evidence of Mrs. Harris's infidelity and financial misconduct, she is not entitled to any of Mr. West's assets. The prenuptial agreement signed by both parties, which explicitly protected Mr. West's wealth in case of infidelity, will be upheld." I watched as the last glimmers of hope drained from Lisa's face. This was the moment I had worked towards for 7 long years: victory, pure and absolute. "Additionally," the judge added, "Mrs. Harris will be responsible for paying Mr. West's legal fees in full. This court finds her claims to be without merit and bordering on malicious prosecution." David's hand came down on my shoulder in a congratulatory squeeze. I gave a slight nod of acknowledgement, my eyes never leaving Lisa's crumbling form. "This court is adjourned," Judge Harley declared, bringing down her gavel with a final, resounding thud. The courtroom burst into a flurry of activity. Reporters hurried out to break the news, lawyers gathered their papers, and a dazed Lisa was led away by her ineffective counsel. I stood, calmly buttoning my jacket as David gathered our things. "Excellent work, David," I said, my voice low and measured. "I couldn't have asked for a better outcome." He grinned, a rare show of emotion from the usually stoic lawyer. "It was my pleasure, Daniel. Some cases are just deeply satisfying to win." As we made our way out of the courtroom, I noticed Lisa standing alone in the hallway. Our eyes met, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed the woman I had once loved. But that flicker was quickly extinguished by the harsh reality of who she had become, of what she had done. She approached me, her steps hesitant. "Daniel, please," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I have nothing left. No money, no home. Please, if there's any part of you that remembers what we once had—" "What we had was a lie," I cut her off coldly. "Every moment, every memory tainted by your betrayal. You made your bed, Lisa. Now lie in it." Her face crumpled, tears finally spilling over. "What am I supposed to do now?" I looked at her, this woman who had once been the center of my world, and felt nothing. No pity, no remorse. Just a cold, hard certainty that justice had finally been served. "That's not my problem," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "Goodbye, Lisa. I sincerely hope our paths never cross again." With that, I turned and walked away, David falling into step beside me. As we pushed through the courthouse doors into the bright sunlight, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was done. Finally, irrevocably done. "What now?" David asked as we descended the steps. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. Now we get back to work. I have an empire to run, after all. As we climbed into the waiting car, I spared one last glance at the courthouse. Lisa stood at the top of the steps, a solitary figure against the grand facade. For a split second, I almost felt, but no. She had made her choices, and now she would live with the consequences. The car pulled away, leaving the courthouse and the last remnants of my old life behind. Ahead lay the future I had built for myself, brick by painstaking brick, a future forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by an unyielding desire for justice. Let Lisa and Jake struggle, I thought. Let them know a fraction of the pain they had inflicted on me.